White Sox fans, and welcome to another edition of FutureSox Podcast. My name is Ian Eskridge. Joining me this evening is our James Fox. Also joining us from Prospects Live is Tyler Jennings. How you doing, Tyler?
Doing pretty good. How about you guys?
Doing all right. It's been the White Sox haven't been very eventful this year. It's been pretty awful watch, but the development in the minor leagues has been pretty awesome. Which brings us to draft season that's coming up here soon, which, obviously we pay a lot of attention to because those are the guys who are going to be filling the system. So that, brings us to talking to people like you who know the draft really, really well. So I guess let's just start off with what you are doing right now at Prospects Live. Do you guys do, obviously you guys are doing draft content, but do you guys have a live show? What do you guys do generally in the draft season?
Yeah, so right now, I think within the past week, we've put our top 300 draft prospects, which I'm really happy to have gotten that out. Like that, working on that board was a really tough task, and having the guys that we have with Brian, Will, Jake, and a couple other guys to really help out with that. Patrick too, they've been phenomenal help for me this year. So shout out to them, obviously, and then even now, just getting closer to the draft, my weekend hopping travel situation is kind of ending with regional play kind of just wrapping up to yesterday. Super regionals this weekend, so it's kind of tough for me to get out there and kind of do what I need to do. So I'm just really catching up on breaking down film, writing reports on guys I've been behind on. And it's quite a few of the first round bunch that I got in April and May that I really want to get out there. And then outside of that, we'll be working on 2025 stuff soon. And in terms of a live show, it's just so tough right now with the way that my life is right now. Best way to put it is I do have a day job and I do have 3 classes this summer, so just trying to keep up with that just really doesn't give me enough time to kind of do a live show. It's something I definitely want to do at some point, but just right now with everything going on, it's just logistically it doesn't make the best sense for me to try and push myself out there to make it happen and make a promise that ultimately I don't know if I can hold up. So fortunately no live show, but I'm sure we're gonna try and do some the mock draft simulator. We'll have some fun with that, do a Twitter circle at some point. And even we're trying to get out to the draft too, me and Jared, for the On the Clock podcast, try and get some guys there and see what happens, but we're still waiting on official word on that.
That would be cool. That'd be a lot of fun.
Yeah, it would be awesome. If it's ever closer, I'll go for sure. If it's at either ballpark here or Milwaukee or whatever, I'm there. That would be awesome. So obviously, you guys released, you said your top 300. Everybody's got Baseball America's got their 500 and Pipeline's got their 200. It's a lot of the same names up at the top. So just, in your opinion and guys you've seen, what are the we can start with the strengths, I guess. What are the strengths of this draft class?
Yeah, I think you nailed it. The top 10 or so is pretty strong in my opinion. It's a top heavy class. Once you get to about pick 12 to 15, you kind of start seeing a bit of decline in the depth. It's not really a deep class per se, but it's kind of really hard to find those top quality guys like you kind of saw last year, where last year was a really deep class. So you look at Charlie Condon and Bazana could probably be the best middle infield prospect we've had in recent years. And Condon's broken the NCAA BB Corps record. Looks pretty good at third base. But then you start getting to the guys like Cam Smith, who we have at 14, and Walker Jenkins, all those guys. And it's kind of tough to really pinpoint what their bigger strengths are than their weaknesses. With Cam Smith, obviously the power and disciplines really look good this year. But then you kind of start looking at defensively, the hands are stiff, does have a little bit of swing and miss issues that I've seen recently. So there's more weaknesses as you go down the list. But saying that it's a strong top 10 and also saying that it's kind of a weaker draft class can both be correct.
So Ian, we've seen in recent years like regardless, like it's 6 weeks out or 7 weeks out, whatever. Like college bats that are good always like rise to the top because teams just there's so many model and data teams that they just take college bats. It seems like, that's like one of the strongest demographics to me. Like looking at the list, the one thing this year, and it kind of sucks for what I typically look for, but the high school position player mix like doesn't seem as strong as it's been like in a while. Tyler, do you think that's accurate? It's just there's not a ton of high school talent that that's probably going to go in like the upper half of the first round, I would say.
Yeah, the high school class this year is probably the worst it's been in a few years. I can't personally, just from when I started doing this, it's probably the worst class I've had to kind of scout. I think Cardinal Griffin and Bryce Rayner are the two first year guys that will go in the top 15. Kind of after that, it's really tough to pinpoint anybody. Maybe Cam Kennedy could be a sneaky top 15 pick. But it's really tough to kind of glue a guy after Rayner and Griffin to be a top 15 pick in the prep kind of demographic this year.
Well,
Yeah.
so Ian, yeah, before you get going. So I mean, it seems like cuz the issue is like you can't really take these guys where you want to take them because of their college commitments, right? Like it's nice like, oh, I think this guy would be great in the 50s, but they're not going to take the slot him out in the 50s. They're just going to go to school. So then it really kind of makes it pretty tough, actually.
Yeah, and draft strategies are going to continue evolving to that kind of precedent as well. I can even think of like Cleveland has 136 and 48 this year. You look at Milwaukee, who's got 5 top 100 picks. They're going to get fancy with how they distribute their money. And like Arizona's got a Seattle situation where they have 3 picks within like 7 or 8 between, I think it's like 29, 33, and 35 or something like that. So it's going to be very interesting to see how the prep class kind of gets paid here and see who goes to campus. But it's like I said, it's a pretty shallow class this year.
Yeah, one of the things that we've talked about a few times on our stream podcast thing is that there's always seems to be some prep guys who just kind of raise their draft stock at the last moment, like whether it be now that they're doing the combine, it happens at the combine, or like Namala last year, his stock shot through the roof while everybody's watching on MLB Network. Do you think that there's a possibility that a couple of those guys managed to weasel their way up a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. I think looking at someone like the comp round pitchers, like I think Ryan Sloan can make a bit more money, considering he's already been up to 99 with a wipeout slider and a good changeup. Looking at some position players like Kellen Lindsey's really raw. He didn't do baseball as a primary thing until this winter, basically. And we're looking at a guy that you think of like Adrian Santana, a Rays pick last year. I've gotten that comp thrown around on Lindsey quite a bit. And there's some people that think he's better than what Santana was. And Santana got $1.5 million last year. I think somebody might pay Lindsey $2 million depending on how he performs, through the combine and the rest of the summer here. Looking farther down the list, like Desan Hill, Owen Hall are two arms that really stand out to me. Owen Hall has been up to 98, 99 with really good off speed. I think he's been up. He's had like a upper 80s cutter, good changeup, good slider. And Desan Hill's been up to 96, really lanky, really projectable. I think those are two guys that kind of stand out for me is like get them to the combine, see how they perform, and if they pop, they're going to get paid.
So obviously this is a White Sox centric podcast. So we tend to look in the AL Central, and it just so happens that the Cleveland Guardians somehow managed to snake their way into getting the top pick in the draft. What do you have that? What do you think that their strategy is going to be for the first pick in the draft?
Honestly, at this point, it's still a little too early for me to kind of determine that. I think at this point, Condon and Bazana are probably the two primary focuses for them. And I think Bazana fits their mold a bit more because they do like that middle infield kind of hitter. But obviously, draft strategy has been the mainstay for the past few years. Like cash is going to be, there's going to be haircut deals, definitely going to happen. There's only been one uh, top draft pick that's signed for slot value in the past 10 years, and those Torkelson in 2020. Everyone else has had a haircut deal. And just looking at this year, like this is the first time we have a $10 million signing bonus. And last year, only 2 players got $9 million. That was Paul Skeens and Dylan Cruz. So either which way you kind of draw it up, I think Cleveland's going to have a significant pay cut at 1-1, whether it be Condon or Bazana. James Tibbs has been thrown around as a name that could be a 1-1 dark horse. Chase Burns has been thrown around recently. I think at this point, Cleveland's not going to know who they're taking until probably 15, 20 minutes before the draft. And that's just how it's going to be. Could be looking at a haircut deal, maybe $2 million under. And maybe someone like Tibbs does give you that value. I think at the end of the day, maybe Bazana signs for $9 million on the dot.
Yeah, I could see that too, because I think there's also a scenario where Condon gets the biggest bonus at 2 to the Reds, where he's Cleveland cuts and then, they run the Condon card in and just pay him, so I could see that too. So going back to the high school class a little bit, one of the riskiest demos is high school pitching, obviously not as much on the left-handed side than the right-handed side. But do you think, Tyler, like teams maybe stray away from, I guess, their just proclivities to not take high school pitching? Do you think they might this year, just because I think it is like one of the strengths of this class? Like the position player high school side is not, but there's a ton of high school pitching. So, maybe somebody in the 20s that wouldn't typically do it just kind of decides, hey, this is the best kid on the board with the highest upside. So they might just decide to do it in a weak class.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you nailed it on the head, where the prep pitching is a little bit deeper than the position player pool. Mentioned it before, Cam Kiminiti could be a guy that sneaks into the top 15, but then you kind of look at some guys farther down the board, like Brendan Dowdy out of SoCal. Really intriguing kid, came up in area codes last year, was chucking 96, 97 with a breaking ball with 3,000 RPMs of spin, and has really just popped on the radar this year. Ryan Sloan's another guy that I think could definitely be paid for what he's worth. Wake Forest commit, and I think Wake probably does need that kind of arm on campus now with like Chase Burns and Hartle leaving this year. But I think at the end of the day, Sloan's probably the best bet in that like 25 to 35 range, where somebody's going to pop an arm there, and it might be an overpayment, but sometimes you do have to overpay and kind of put that into your strategy into, we really want to make sure this kid's in our dev team. And some of the others, like Owen Hall, like I mentioned before, could be another guy that forgoes that Vanderbilt commitment and does get paid out of the draft. And even a couple of other guys too that kind of pop up to my mind, if I can bring him up here. Joe Yoki, Iowa kid. He's really young for the class, really good fastball, really good slider. Could have his name called at like somewhere in the comp round, I think. He's another guy that I really do like. Personally, he's been up to 97. Slider, it comes from like a low release. Everything kind of works well. Command really does need to work out. And then Chris Lavonis is another Northeast arm that could really pop. He's already been up to 98 with a 5-pitch mix, really athletic. I think somebody's going to take a shot on that as well.
So Sloan's interesting. He's local to me and Ian. So he's York High School in Elmhurst here in the Chicagoland area. It seems like he's definitely going to get taken and get paid. So that's interesting. Do you think William Schmidt's the top guy or no?
There's some teams that are kind of out on Schmidt, mainly because of the delivery and everything, because it's pretty high effort. The arm's late. There's some things you got to really work out there. It's one of the more dangerous 1-2 punches in the entire draft. Like, you got a fastball that's already been up to 99 with a cut ride shape and a potential 70 grade hammer of a breaking ball, but there's also not much of a changeup. If you're going off of pure stuff, I think somebody's going to take that probably around 20, 25, because you're going to buy on the athlete. It's really great athleticism, but there's a lot of kinks you got to work out with delivery there, I think.
Yeah.
Could somebody take him higher than Sloan? Maybe. I think that's where we have him right now. I can't remember off the top of my head, but I think at the end of the day, Sloan might be off the board before Schmidt.
Yeah, so Ian, Schmidt has Dave Dombrowski's Phillies in the 20s written all over him. It's like just kind of what Dave Dombrowski does.
Yeah, he'll also trade him for some superstar at some point. we know
Probably.
we know how he operates. Um. So, uh, is it? I'd say it's probably fair to say that you're saying that it's basically going to be the top 10 picks, and then after that it just falls off, and so it's pretty much just going to be a crapshoot after that. Is that kind of how you're thinking?
Yeah, I think so. I think at this point, I think we can all agree on a consensus top 10 or top 12 on like certain names, flip flopping around on whoever prefers who. And after that, it's kind of just like throw a dart at the board and have some fun with it.
Oh, you're muted. I don't
No,
hear you.
you're
Okay,
muted.
now I'm good.
There we go.
Okay. Yeah, good. Now I'm good.
I can edit that
Me-
out.
Yeah,
No big
it's
deal.
fine. So, I mean, me and Ian have kind of talked about 10 names in the mix for the White Sox at 5. And, we can like mention some of those guys just for anybody that's like listening for the first time. Like, obviously, like the college heaviness early. You kind of mentioned Charlie Condon and Bazana, JJ Weatherholt making a late run here at West Virginia. You got Nick Kurtz, Jack Caglione of Florida, um, and then Braden Montgomery at Texas A&M, the two high school position players, and then Hagen Smith and Chase Burns, obviously on the pitching side. So Tyler, I think Bazana and Condon, it's really easy to see as maybe the two top guys in the class. Who do you feel the best about, like in that group? I guess other than those two guys.
Um, that's kind of really tough. I think Hagen is probably the best or most confident I'm in there because the underlying data on Hagen Smith is really intriguing. Obviously, everybody knows about the near 70 grade slider that he has, but the fastball is really underrated in my opinion. He added a lot of velocity this off season. He's now up to 100 with a really flat approach angle, and that like he's got a 46% whiff rate on the fastball alone this year, which Chase Burns is only at like 35 or something like that last I saw. So I'll be honest, I think Hagen with the improved command and everything and the legit two pitch mix, there's not much recoil in the delivery, and he's working on a changeup. I think he's the safest bet in my opinion out of that group behind Bazana and Condon. Um, Weatherholt too is another guy that I think is going to probably be a top 5 pick at this point. He's really come on after coming back from the injury, and he's even been making plays at shortstop that I didn't think he was capable of making. Like the other night, I think it was against Grand Canyon in the regional final, made that play deep in the hole, strong arm. I didn't think he had the arm strength to make it across the diamond for that. So I'm starting to think he's a shortstop at this point.
Yeah, that play kind of blew me away. I saw that. I saw the same thing. I was like, "Wow, was not expecting that."
Well, and that's huge for him because if he's second base only, it makes a big difference,
Yeah.
obviously, So, yeah, that's interesting. I mean, with Hagen Smith, I think, he's had Tommy John already, which could be good or bad, I think. Like some teams don't really care. Um, so yeah, that's interesting. Those 10 we mentioned, and then like right in that next group, you mentioned James Tibbs earlier, Florida State. I don't know how much defensive utility he has, but he can really hit. And then just Trey Yasevich of Eastern Carolina's definitely the third college starter. In some years he might even go higher than I think he ultimately ends up going.
Yeah, I love you, Savage man. He was one of the guys coming into the year where I thought he was going to have a breakout year, and I'm finally glad it happened because really came into summer last year. He was more of a low 90s guy. Now he comes out, he's bumping 96, 97 for lengthy periods of time. The changeup's gotten a lot better too. So it's like a splitter from a 7-foot release height. So with his Savage, he's got that high release, and it kind of does hamper the fastball a little bit, just because of the downplane nature he's going to have, even though he has so much carry to the pitch. But that allows his slider and his changeup to really play off of that as well. So you've heard of some guys with a low release that have that fastball really work and have it play up in the zone. Yeah, Savage is kind of that opposite, where he's got that super high release, but it lets his secondaries play so much better because he has so much uh, downhill angle to it. Like the slider itself isn't really great shape wise, but It's a mid-80s gyro slider. It really plays off of that tunneling action he has with the fastball, and it just drops away from hitters, and they have no idea how to deal with that. And the changeup's kind of that same way, where starts very high, dips down, just disappears off the table, and he's easily one of my favorite arms, and I think he's been the third arm in this class since at least early March.
Yeah, he's he had the injury for a little bit, correct? And he's just kind of making his way back from that.
Yeah, he did have that little freak. I think it was a collapsed lung incident
That's what it was.
during
Yeah.
right before tournament play, which sucked. When we heard the news that happened, he was hospitalized. I thought at first like it may have been an elbow injury or something, but not to make it sound like a collapsed lung is like best case scenario, but learning about that and knowing it was only a short term thing, and he came back and he threw I think it was like 7 innings of one hit ball the other day against Chase Burns. Like, he's a tough kid, and that was really cool to see him bounce back really quickly from an injury that's really, really scary.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Who do you have as the top prep position player, Rayner or Griffin?
We have Griffin right now, and I think you can flip flop on both of them. Like, Griffin has shown you that he can hit. He has hit for power, and I think he's at least going to be tried out in center. If not, he'll probably be a right fielder with really good arm, and he could play some infield as well. Rayner kind of fits that like Colson Montgomery, like very tall, pretty physical shortstop. Where does he stay at short? Who knows? Maybe he moves to third base, kind of like a Corey Seager. I remember that was a thing when he was coming up. But I think like with Rayner, the bat's gotten faster. He looks a lot more athletic. I think at the end of the day, my gut still tells me Griffin, but I think they're going to be chosen pretty close together, I think.
Yeah, so this is a lot, stuff that me and Ian are going to be talking about because there's lots of rumors linking the White Sox to prep players, despite the fact that I think most people think that like the college guys are probably going to come off first. Like, I don't know. I think one of the prep, I mean, they've been linked heavily to Connor Griffin, and I've heard a lot on Rayner too. So just, Rayner also has the 19-year-old thing that lots of teams hate, right? Like he's a little bit older. Connor Griffin's super young. Like he reclassified to this class. How much, like, I guess, how tough is it for you guys, just to rank or scout Connor Griffin like playing baseball in Mississippi? Because it's really just, it's not great, and you see me and Ian have joked because he has like 85 stolen bases like on the year, which is absurd, so just, it's just not a hotbed for high school talent, which is kind of weird because it's like a Gulf state. So I thought it would be a little bit better, but it's really not.
Yeah, you'd think that like the South would be a lot more competitive in high school baseball, but it's really not the case. Yeah, I think he took that stolen base record like what 20 games into the year or something crazy like that. Like it kind of does show you the level of competition they have there. And for me, it's kind of going based off of what I saw last year with Griffin at USA's complex. Like he was at, or not NHSI, but PDP, saw him for a week out there, and just watching a bunch of film from like PG National, all the summer circuit showcases that they did. And I think he was even at 18U trials later on in the year. So kind of just bouncing it off of that to me has been more not intuitive, but like it's been a lot more helpful in my evaluation of him. Because like you look at it last year, there were teams that kind of did struggle with him as a hitter because he was injured, and it did hamper his swing a little bit. But then he comes out this year, you see exactly what we all thought he would be, where you could really project the hit tool, really project the power, and he looks all like legitimate 5-tool player potentially. And he can also get on the mound and throw 97. Like he's just an all around really good player. And you mentioned it too, like reclass, he's going to be, I think, just over 18 on draft day at this point, where Rayner's going to be like 19 and some change. And teams do value that. They do put age in as a factor, and model friendly teams will definitely go for the younger players.
That's with the 19-year-old thing. I could see the White Sox doing that if their pick was a little bit farther back. Now, unless they're able to manage to get a significant deal monetarily, I would probably guess Griffin as well at number 5, but you know, who knows at this point.
Well, so I guess like the good thing then, like I think we can assume like Charlie Condon, Travis Bazana, I'll say Burns, like those three guys are gone. White Sox are picking at 5. What do you think, like Tyler, best case scenario, what makes sense for them there? And then I guess within that, like how much does it make sense just like take their best guy, or do they have to consider the fact that they have 3 picks on night 1 this year, and you might be able to have a deal with somebody in the second that influences that first rounder a little bit?
Yeah, I think they're going to definitely play into strategy more than anything there. And like mentioning the best player available, I think at the end of the day, our board is going to be different from what internally what their board is. So for all we know, say like JJ Weatherholt's their number one guy on their board. I can totally see that happening. I think Weatherholt at this point might be the best bet to go at number 5, just from my gut feel. Anything after that, I could definitely see them dipping into the prep demographic with Connor Griffin or Bryce Rayner. And I think those are the main guys to go. But, Hagen Smith still there at number 5 could definitely still be a thing. I would love to have him in that farm system, because that would be really, really fun to pair him with Noah Schultz.
How much does I know these guys are different, right? These are big, like Jack Caglione is a big physical monster, right? And look, I have reservations about Nick Kurtz. I know Ian does too, just playing at Wake Forest, right? But like, how much does the lack of success of guys like Andrew Vaughn and you're seeing it in Detroit with Torkelson and even like Nolan Chanuel, like just like taking first baseman that high, I'm not a huge fan of it. I would not be happy with that. Now, it's also maybe not fair to Caglione because he is like he's I don't know. I don't know that Andrew Vaughn's struggle should really factor in for him. But how much is it going to? Do you think?
It's going to affect them a lot, I think, and teams are going to be aware of that. Which sucks because, I mean, both of these kids, Caglianone and Kurtz, are very, very talented. They just happen to be landlocked at a position that doesn't have a lot of defensive value, and it's going to put a lot of pressure on the bat to perform. I think with Caglianone this year, like the bat to ball skills have really improved. I'm still a bit scared of the chase rate a little bit. Like, he's chasing at a higher rate, and for me, when evaluating, I value chase rate a lot higher than some of the others, mainly because once you start seeing the more advanced stuff at, say, like high A or double A, how is that going to play if you're still chasing at a 35+% rate? Whereas Kurtz he's got the plate discipline, and the eye is insanely good, and he's turned a corner defensively at first base. But the one concern I have with him is he too passive? And I think you find the extremes with both of those guys. Like, I think Kurtz might find himself in 0-2 holes a lot more often because he watches the first pitch, he doesn't ambush. And I think unless he has like a legitimate approach change and starts ambushing the first pitch more, he'll find himself into strikeouts more than, say, Caglianone, who's going to try and hammer the first pitch over the wall. Um, so they're both very interesting. I'm not too sure how each of them are going to perform at the next level at this point.
Yeah, the one thing I did notice about Jack is that the walk and strikeout ratios that he had from last year have completely done a flip, and the walk percentage is up quite a bit. I did not happen to check out the his chase rates this year compared to last, though. I had heard somebody said that they had gotten better, but I haven't actually seen the numbers. So
it's like marginally better.
Yeah.
I think last year was like a 40% chase rate. This year it's closer to like 33-35%, which is still too high for my liking. I'd like to see those come down to like 25% if you want to really improve the hit tool as you advance farther in the minor leagues.
Well, and so that's what like his like supporters have said, right? Like the chase rate is still really bad, but he's not striking out.
yeah,
So
Mhm.
But you're projecting forward. Like once the pitching's better, like if he keeps chasing like this, like he's going to strike out, right? So
Yeah.
I guess just like the last thing on him, if you took him, would you like try him in an outfield corner before relegating him to first, or no?
I the toughest thing with him is I don't think he's as athletic as many people think he is. So I don't know how well he would do in a corner spot. I think at this point he might just be landlocked at first base. And I think Kurtz is kind of that same way too, where like I don't know if you try Kurtz at third base, maybe even left field, but I think like looking at Kurtz at first base in recent weeks, like there was a play he made against UNC in pool play at the ACC tournament where they had an errant throw from the outfield and it went past second base, and he just came out of nowhere, just scooped it up barehanded, and just basically was on his side and just threw a dart over to third base and threw the runner out. Um, I think Kurtz himself could be above average, dare I say, maybe even plus defender at first. And I don't really like throwing out a plus grade on defense at first base because it's kind of unheard of.
So I guess just like before we let you go, and I think Ian has one more for you too. We've talked about a lot of these guys up at the top. If you had to give me somebody like you think's going to go in like the middle of the round that you think could end up being one of the better players from the class, or just somebody that's ranked high in a top 100 next year that wasn't one of these top guys, do you have a name or two for me?
Yeah, definitely a Savage for me. I think I've already touched on that pretty well. I do really like Seaver King. I think he's really athletic, bat speed explosive. He can play shortstop. He can play third base, and he's even had tryouts in center field this year where he looked pretty good. Um, the big issue obviously with him is the chase race, and he's too aggressive. But like, I do love the athleticism. Like he makes some really good hits. Like I remember, what was it? I think it was Santucci faced in March where he had back foot sliders, and then Santucci challenged him with 95 at the eyes in the left-handed batter's box, and he, with the bat speed that he has, he turned on that and pulled it into the left center field gap for I think it was like 106 mile an hour double. And I thought that was the most impressive piece of hitting I've seen in a long time. Uh, there's nobody that should be able to pull a ball that hard that quickly. And just with the athleticism, the twitch, and the bat speed he has, I really do like Seaver King, and I think he's going to be a really good player if he can change the approach a little bit.
Yeah, that was pretty much kind of what I was looking for. So I'm good.
How I can do how what's too high for Brody Brecht out of Iowa?
Oh, too high. If
Well, I know
somebody
because
takes,
like somebody's gonna do it. Like somebody's
yeah,
gonna not care about the command, see the stuff, and just pop them. But what's how early is where Tyler Jennings is like, oh my god, that's crazy early.
15 to 20, I think is too early for me. And like, you mentioned it, pitching is going to be like buy stock now essentially because arms go down. It's a really explosive demographic in terms of injuries. Somebody's gonna buy him in that range. I'm gonna sit here and say that's probably not a good pick, unless he has like a really good development fit. Say like Milwaukee takes him at 17. Milwaukee can definitely work out some kinks there because with practice, like you mentioned, it the stuff's really good. Fastball's up to 99, 100 with a good slider. But the command's really held him back, and he's looked better down the stretch. Like the command has looked improved, the fastball command and the strikes have improved. Um, I just the athlete itself is really good, but the delivery sucks. And I think that's where somebody's gonna have to start is fix the delivery, let the strikes come, and go from there. If the strikes don't come, that's a back end bullpen guy at best.
Yep.
So that's not kind of the pick you want to have at 15 to 20. So not for me there.
I'm playing the Ken Williams role of falling for the football players, Ian. So
yeah, good,
yeah.
good.
Yeah.
Thankfully, we're picking 5, and I don't think that they can do that there. I mean, I'm sure that they could figure something out, but I don't think that they will. Yeah, we've seen that movie before here, where we get these, Alec Hansen, for one, where we get these guys that are just could possibly be so good, but the floor could be so low. And that's like 15 to 20 for Brecht is way, way too early for me. I don't think I would touch him in the first round personally.
Yeah, but you know that if he falls to the Dodgers, he's going to be a top 75 prospect within 12 months. So.
6, take it or leave it.
6, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I mean, he could be, could go to the Yankees and then he'll be a top 20 prospect, and then they'll trade him and then he'll go somewhere and then die. That's how that stuff works. Are you good, James?
Yeah, I think we're all good. Thank you for joining us, sir.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you guys for inviting me. And I'm, again, thankful for having to be here with you guys. Like, this is amazing, to be honest.
Well, we appreciate it.
Am I allowed to fanboy?
Come on. You can. It's fine. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
We're doing our live draft show, so I might reach out to you just to see if you want to hop on for a little bit. So
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that'd be cool. Yeah. So you got something that you want to plug on your way out here?
Yeah, check out the Top 300 Prospects Live. There is a subscription to it, but we do in my opinion, a fantastic job, and we bust our tails to get all this content out for the viewers and the readers. So, if you can lend $5 a month of your wallet to us to help us out, that would mean a lot to us. We're gonna have a lot of good content coming out here soon, with more film coming out, and then I'll try and deep dive myself into some of the like day 2 arms. So like Cal Steven, Durangelo's Sinjay from Mississippi State is 2 guys I want to try and do at some point, and kind of give a breakdown on that, because those 2 guys are really intriguing in my eyes. So
it's a switch pitcher. Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah,
so weird to watch.
Yeah.
I watch video. Yeah, I watched video of a guy the other day who was, and you can't do it anymore, but it's a Japanese guy who was going to either side of the plate on every pitch, and it drove me insane. So luckily he can't do that every at bat, So
yeah, Pat Venditti wishes he had the stuff that Sinjay has.
Yeah, he hits what, like 98 from both sides or something like that.
I think he's been up to 99 from the right side. From the left side, it's probably closer to like 93, 94. But even having that kind of arm talent from both sides is stupid.
So good. So at Tyler Jennings 24 on the X, you can find Tyler. Thank you so much for your time, and hopefully we'll catch up with you around draft time.
Absolutely. Thank you guys again for having me on.
Thanks so much.